I like my money, do. I definitely do, but so that's why I'm here.
This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus Podcast, presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are at day one of mandatory camp here in Orchard Park. The biggest story of the day.
I feel like we're usually on the other side.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I had to. But the biggest story of the day, Daniel,
focus.
Is
the fact that we are on different sides.
Focus. Michael, James Cook in attendance.
Yeah, I mean, honest with you, I was a little surprised that he was here.
Same.
And he participated. So I think if you're a Bills fan that wants to see him out there and here for the season, this was a step in the right direction, but I don't think that solves the whole issue. I think this is a positive, but it doesn't say like, oh, everything's great and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and James was asked after practice, point blank, why he felt the need to attend mandatory minicamp. And guys, he said,
I like my money, do. I definitely do, but so that's why I'm here.
Here's my take. I think he said the right things today. Did he say that? Yes. He probably now is like, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I think when you see it written out in a tweet or an article, it hits different than when you actually hear it yourself.
Well, let's think about what's the difference. He hasn't been here for the non-mandatory portions of camp.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. He came today and he went out on the field. You wouldn't have noticed any difference. He's out there running his routes. He's playing football at the level that it is as an OTA. And the reality is the mandatory camp, football-wise, is no different than the other camps.
Yeah.
But the difference was if he did not show up, it was fine, bigger fine, third day. It would have cost him about $100,000. So him not showing up at the other times did not impact his bottom line at all. This one did. So that is the truth. I'm thinking of it in the context of playing football this year and with his team, because from this moment on, if he misses anything, he's fine for every bit of it.
So my thought is, as Jenna said, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I thought James was very poignant and picked each of his words carefully. I think he answered everything else phenomenally. It was the respectful dialogue that we had been seeing throughout this offseason between Brandon Beane and kind of reading through of the I love Jimbo and all these things. And he was asked about, hey, all of this stuff is going to work itself out. Do you want to be in Buffalo? I love Buffalo. Why are you going to come to training camp? All of these things. He said, yes, because I need to be on the field because I want to win a Super Bowl. I want to help my team. All of those things were the right things. I think he made a point by saying, I like my money. He's made it very clear that he wants money. He wants to get paid. And he chose those words, I thought, as a very poignant way to get a point across. He did say it, as we showed, or if you're watching or listening, there was a smirk.
Yeah.
Okay? But I think he meant that. I think he meant, like, I'm really only here because if I didn't have to be here without getting fined, I wouldn't be here.
I mean, I think that is true. But he could have held in. Like, he could have come today and not done any of the drills.
Good
but
point.
He did show up. He did participate. He did everything that was asked of him. It's not like he only did individual work. Like, he did all the stuff. So, to me, I agree. I hear what you're saying completely. And I think you're right. I think it's honesty. It's a little bit of truth of, like...
And we love that.
I like that.
And we did get Josh to say
He loves Jimbo. Yes.
I wish
Give
we
us a
could
Jimbo.
have like a counter during press conference.
We also, the reason too, I think this was as surprising as it was, is on the Adam Schefter podcast over the weekend, you probably heard that Schefter said these two sides are really far apart. That he didn't expect to see him in Buffalo anytime soon. Said it was pretty much going to be Ray Davis's season coming into training camp. Didn't know when it was going to be. I don't think that James Cook showing up, to Mike's point, means that they are any closer to a deal.
I agree.
I think it is a good move to show up.
I agree.
Because you win nothing in the negotiation by not showing up. The team has the upper hand in that. I mean, he's under contract, but they have the upper hand to say, don't show up, that's fine, we'll fine you.
Yeah.
Like, James doesn't have that here. So I liked that he showed up. That was a good sign. He looked good, as most offensive players did today. We can get to that in a second. But I do take Schefter for his word, and maybe it was agent talking to Schefter to say, hey, we're not that close. But again, I don't think him showing up today means they are closer to a deal than what they were this weekend.
Listen, and that's the information he got. It depends. If it's coming from the agent, they want more. Look, there's several ways this can play out. he could sign a new contract with the Bills. They come to some agreement, he signs an extension. You could have a messy hold in with issues at camp. I personally don't expect that. I really don't, because I think, maybe it's just me, there's another option here. As much as he says, I love it here, and maybe he does, but if he doesn't see the money that he wants, he may eventually, and maybe in his mind he already has, settled in of saying, you know what, if they don't give me what I want, I play out this year, and then I get an opportunity to go somewhere else. Because he'll love playing there too, because he'll get the money that he wants to get. It doesn't mean he dislikes Buffalo, but he wants that money and he wants the playing
You
time.
know what I'm going to say.
It's all a business.
It's all business, and it's the Tremaine Edmonds. We hope he balls out. And if Tremaine, when he balled out and played really well and was the Pro Bowler, that was great. Thank you for your service. We're moving on to the next guy. So it is that. James also was asked if there is any personal side to this. And Jen, I thought James' answer there was perfect.
About it being a business?
It's a business.
Yeah.
There are no hard feelings.
Yeah.
He hopes it all gets worked out. He kind of crossed that bridge. He talked about that he would show up at training camp. He said that when Tim Graham kind of pressed him to say, would you be participating in training camp? He kind of dodged that question and said, I'm just working every day. We'll see what happens when we get to training camp.
Well, in fairness to him, he doesn't have to give away any of that.
Yeah. Nope.
I think that's smart.
Yeah.
I think it's smart for him. Look, he's going to look out for himself. He should. This team is better with him on the team. I think we would all agree to that.
Unquestioned.
At the point, if they do need to move away from James Cook, it would be when they have an entire offseason to try to figure that out. I talked to Ray Davis. You know the way Ray Davis is. He's ready for whatever it is. He thinks, I said to him, you never know what the circumstances are about needing to do more. His answer was, we got a group of guys who can do more. They are all supportive of each other. I think Ray's a very good player, but in this season, James Cook on the field and playing well would be great for the Bills. I think, if you're telling me today, I think that's the way it plays out. I could see it just playing out under this contract, and then he moves on, and good for him. And actually good for the Bills. If it does get to that point and he gets a big deal with somebody else, it's a much better chance at a better draft pick that you get as compensation at some point. Now, that's a ways off.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to training camp, but these are the things that happen.
And if you want to talk ways off, I know it's been brought up, the possibility of a transition tag or a franchise tag. I just don't see that being the case. Usually teams use those franchise tags as the bookmark to get a long-term deal done. If they're not getting a long-term deal done this year, I don't see one necessarily happening with the sides seemingly as far apart as they are right now.
Yeah, I agree. So, again,
Yeah.
we will see how it plays out. But if you'd asked me, and we did talk about this like last week, I didn't think he was going to be here today.
Yep.
He's here. He practiced. Good news in that case. Now let's see where it goes from there.
Sean McDermott saying he respects the decision made. Josh Allen very complimentary of James Cook being here. And I do think it does say something about him showing up. It would have been easy for him to skip. I know there's the fine, but like where things were at, I agree. I was kind of like, oh, okay, James Cook is here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say shocked, but I was a bit surprised.
Also, credit to James for talking.
Yeah.
Also, yes.
Because he's, first of all,
he
he's
didn't
not a
have
big
to.
talker, though.
Not a big talker.
He could have 130 yards in the game. He's not, I got to get in front of the microphones. He's never
Correct.
really that
So
guy.
I thought that was the mature, grown-up thing to do, to answer all the questions so we weren't left wondering.
Yeah, no, agreed. All right, so football?
All right, Josh.
Well
that was
done.
funny. That was funny.
So this was the first time we saw Josh Allen after getting married, obviously, and reporters tried to ask him about the wedding.
Yeah, he kind of sort of, I did not ask it, but I would have sort of stammered through a question too. You don't want to be like, so Josh, tell us about your wedding. So it was more like your big event, your big moment, and then he cut that off.
You're trying to circumvent ways to be respectful while trying to be like coy around it. And Josh, so good with the media, was just so perfect asking about it. And finally was asked about what it's like wearing the wedding ring and how are you getting used to it on the field. And Josh goes, football. And that segued into the rest of the press conference. But it was, Josh did talk about the fact that the biggest decision he ever made was this offseason
Yes.
and marrying his best friend.
That was sweet.
Everything
Yeah.
else kind of falls into place. Handling the first offseason where you're the reigning MVP. He said it doesn't feel any different because that doesn't mean anything and isn't worth a whole lot when it comes to winning a championship.
I agree.
Yeah.
Again, that perspective. We heard Joe Brady talk about that earlier this offseason, that you wouldn't know he's the guy that's the MVP showing up in the building, that he feels hungry still.
Yeah.
By the way, he wasn't that great today. Listen, it's 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Joe Andreessen.
Joe
got a pick.
Andreessen
He was all over the
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
The short shorts.
tried to be the next Fred Warner.
I mean, I'm kidding. They got a bunch of guys out there. He threw a couple of picks, and the ball's knocked down. It's just usually we joke about it. When Josh is like, when you see him at training camp, the ball rarely hits the ground.
Yeah.
Like, he just makes plays. It's a little off today. We'll
Yeah.
cut
You
him
got
a
to get
break.
used to the ring.
Yeah, that's it.
Josh did say that, like, he uses this time to try and see what he can get away with. Is like, this is kind of the time where you feel it out. You make mistakes in practice so you can learn from them.
Yeah.
Other note on defense. You all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Christian Benford is a really, really good football player.
Yeah.
Josh threw a perfect ball down the sidelines to Tyrell Shavers. You couldn't have placed it into his hands any better. And as Shavers is trying to get his feet down and stay in bounds, Benford just rips it out of his hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it was textbook what you talk about and what you teach. Special. That little moment where I was asking some people, like former players, like, how do you replicate when they do a run play and they're not even in pads? Like, this is so hard to tell. You're looking to see about positioning and technique. So you can't really always base things off the results. But that was a result where I went, that's a top tier cornerback play.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple players sitting out, including Cole Bishop.
Yeah. You don't
I mean,
love to
look,
see that.
As we say, these are just a few days in camp, but it's the last thing you give the team before they come back from training camp. I know I asked Bobby Babich last week about expectations, and he shut that down and said, players have higher expectations. They should have higher expectations than we have for them. Their expectation is that he would come in and earn the job and play. I'm not saying he can't do that, but DeMar was out today too, and you want to see him out on the field. You really do, because this is
That's
an
what
important
stunted his
year
development.
Yeah.
last year.
And
Now,
Sean McDermott emphatically said, it doesn't matter if you're an old guy or a young guy, whoever is out there is a player that has earned our trust.
Yeah.
He was almost like hitting the table talking about it. And I was like, wow, okay, like that sends a message.
that was Sean, because he's also heard the
Heard
idea
it.
people say, like, well, you don't
Yeah.
want to play
He doesn't
young
Yes.
play
players.
the rookies.
Yes.
You know what? Doesn't matter that
Yeah.
the rookies
Yeah.
And
don't
Christian Benford started week number 1
Yeah.
in LA against
Osiris
the champs.
Torrens. Like,
Yeah, right. These
Nailed it.
guys have
Yeah.
started.
Nailed
Yes,
it.
very
It sounded
good.
kind of weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because we were expecting.
But like
different.
that's something that we've actually joked around with Sean at
Yeah.
the combine and
Yeah.
things like that, or at the golf events that we've done with him. Like, hey, you don't play rookies, and he's like, yeah, I hear it all the time. It was a mic drop today. He did say, especially in the defensive line, they're going to lean into some of their youth. That's a big part of it. He's excited.
Yeah.
He said
young
that
players are going to play.
and
Yeah.
he goes,
That's what he said.
He goes, and they're going to go as far. The defense is going to go as far as the D line goes. That is a lot of pressure and emphasis on that spot. But for him to say, there's this thought that Sean McDermott doesn't play young guys. He goes, you earn the job because when I put you out there, the guy next to you has to trust that you're going to do your job.
Yeah.
I liked that little Sean pushing back a little bit.
Yeah. But it's true. Like, you got to trust the guy next to you. And now McDermott did say that he expects most of these guys to be ready to go
Right.
in terms of when training camp starts and all that. So that is a positive note. But obviously,
Yeah.
you would have loved for him to be out there today, considering the time he missed last offseason and just what he needs to do to cement himself on the field.
And Taron Johnson, dealing with an injury, he's out there.
Labrum.
Labrum. So
Catherine Fitzgerald from the Buffalo
Buffalo
News
News.
talked to him last
Yeah.
week. So that's a tough injury.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he's a tough
And the
dude.
shoulder,
Right.
I
The
feel
shoulder,
like,
yeah.
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 He's taking a lot of hits.
But it's not his forearm. It's not from the broken forearm
Yeah.
or last season. So that's a positive in the sense of it's not a recurring injury. It's just a new injury, which also isn't
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I think it's like 6 weeks, and this is, it's funny. Sometimes people would say like, it's time to get a little time off. It's ramp up time for these guys
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
ramping
I
up.
got that vibe from Sean where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's minicamp. The guys are all together. Like, just high five and do walkthroughs. And he's like, this is the ramp up because when we hit training camp, we got to be going.
They're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Which is true. It
I
makes
think
sense.
that's where the game has changed the most.
It's our break.
Well, from years ago when it was
Got any plans?
limited football, right? Is Is that what you're supposed to say?
Football.
Limited off-season work, and then they would come in for training camp and get themselves in shape. And, oh, no, they put a lot of stuff in. The basics are in.
Yeah.
It's ready for football when they get to training camp. So
Yeah.
that's for sure
Okay.
in a little while.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about.
I know.
We're like 6 weeks away.
Yeah.
Got my Super Bowl coming up.
Yeah.
My mom, Val's Super Bowl
Yeah.
coming up. All right, that'll do it for
My
us
Super
here.
Bowl.
Yeah, that'll do it for us here. Please be sure to like, comment,
I'm the
subscribe,
officiant.
and share.
That got weird for a second.
I didn't even think
That
about
got
it
weird
because
for a
obviously I
second.
knew
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to talk for a living. That's the most nervous ever. You think you're nervous, Jenna? I'm nervous.
There's odds on that. Let's see how it goes.
What does that mean?
On how he does.
What do you mean? Okay, for Mike, yeah, it screwed me up because usually Mike's over
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
For Mike and Dan, I am Jenna. We'll catch you next time here on the Buffalo Plus channel, presented by Connors and Ferris. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. And